Now your fingers, 5, 4. Burst both hands.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Overrated. Today we're going to be looking at Tokyo Mirage Sessions, a game pitched as a title where Fire Emblem would meet the Shin Megami Tensei series, which just so happened to be like 2 of the 5 reasons I have to keep on living on this world. So you can imagine how excited I was when it was first announced. What we got was something pretty much the opposite of what I first imagined it would be, but something I learned to love all the same, so I felt like it was time to figure out if all the ratings the game is getting are deserved or not. It's kind of weird to see such a discrepancy between professional and user reviews, so what we did is gather every score that we could find online, averaged them all out, and it came out to a 78 out of 100. As has become standard procedure here, we're going to rank the story, characters, music, visuals, and gameplay from the worst to the best, and then give our own overall thoughts about it at the end. Alright, let's do this. In 5th place is the story. Do you have at least 2 active accounts on myanimelist.net? Are you currently giving this show the 3-episode trial? If so, then this game is right up your alley. I feel like it's my civic duty to tell everyone that Tokyo Mirage Sessions is aimed directly at the anime audience. And while that's totally fine, anybody that isn't into that world probably won't be able to get all the way into this game. Then again, this might just be the perfect introduction into a new world of entertainment for you. You're missing out on so many classics like, but before we get too deep into the negativity hole, I want to say that I think the story is actually kind of cool. When the main character awakens to the power of his performa, or the physical manifestation of a person's creative energy, he gets recruited into an interdimensional shadow resistance group that fronts as a showbiz talent agency in the real world. Their goal? To perform the Opera of Light in order to combat the Dark Lord Garnef and his Opera of Shadows. Alright, cool. I mean it, that's pretty sweet, and very much in the vein of a Persona game, but with its own little musical twist. Just be ready for, and seriously I can't stress this enough, lots of singing and dancing and singing and dancing. It's pretty fun to follow the characters chasing their dreams of stardom, all while saving the world from the invading army of shadows. But somewhere deep inside, I feel tremors of the generic rumbling around my loins even just thinking about it. Even the characters themselves say as much. Yeah, Ellie, I kind of agree. But I don't think it's the plot itself that makes it feel bland. It's entertaining enough to keep me casually interested, but the tone of the game is monotonously upbeat, which does a total disservice to the story it's trying to tell. Nothing all that awful really ever happens. The shadows interrupt a couple of concerts, and a few citizens around the streets of Tokyo go slack-jawed when the shadows steal their performance, but the problems are usually resolved in a few hours at the very most in game time. It seems like the game designers purposely went for a lighter mood, but if the mood never deviates from itself, you start to lose any sense of mood at all, because it all just starts to feel the same. I expected it to venture into heavier narrative territory considering what all is at stake, but I sometimes even kind of forgot that the world was in danger of being destroyed. You'd maybe think something like that would be a little more pressing on the mind. Anyways, we give it 14 points out of 20. In 4th place are the visuals. I really can't think of a better word for the visuals than pleasant. Everything from the comfy pastel color scheme to the charming character models is just so nice. The visuals establish the game's personality, and it's relentlessly cheery. I genuinely like spending time in the colorful world. It's just a nice place to be. And I love upgrading the team's weapons because they all look sweet. And the costumes you can get for the characters are fun to play around with, and the bouncy character animations are downright heartwarming. The game is bursting with charm, and although I do wish it would get a little darker and grimier at times, I can't stay mad at it, because it all just makes me so happy. The battles are full of some pretty slick animations too, and the enemy designs are all pretty great. In fact, I think almost all the character models and designs are pretty solid. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I think the Fire Emblem characters that make appearances are actually pretty alright. At first I thought they were a little too far removed from their source material, but they kinda remind me of the Persona designs in the parent series. There's just a bunch of great little visual touches that completely define the game's identity. All the locations feel comfortable to be in, so it's easy to get lost in the game. And another thing, the interfacing inside and out is intuitive. Do you know that bad menu interfaces are the #1 cause of brain aneurysms in the United States? I had like 14 playing the last game we reviewed. I wasn't crazy about the character animations outside of battle, I noticed. They just feel a little stock. Visually speaking, it just felt a little short of genuine, because you keep seeing them make the same facial contortions and body movements throughout a 50-hour adventure. And something that hurts me a little bit to say is that the character designs of the main cast feels a little too generic. It's weird because, like I said before, everything else is pretty well designed. The last flaw that I feel like I should point out in Tokyo Mirage Sessions is that visually it isn't overly packed with detail. The locations look almost sterile sometimes, like my brain surgeon was expecting to operate on the walkways in the dungeons or something. But the presentation as a whole is clean and, like we said before, super pleasant to look at. The visuals get 16 points. I guess this feels like the right place to talk about the censoring controversy that this game had. There are some slight changes made in the American version to some of the visuals to make it more family friendly or whatever they say they were trying to do to it. And while I'm not going to dock the game any points for it, I'd be remiss if I didn't condemn it, if only because of the bad precedent that it sets for localization teams from now on. So yeah, don't do that anymore, Nintendo of America.
Stop that, okay?
In third place is the music. I don't take any pride in callowness, but my taste in music lies somewhere between Francis Scott Key's Star-Spangled Banner and Guns N' Roses, so anything outside of those squarely American parameters is sometimes hard for me to access. I've just never quite been able to learn to like anime-style music, which is a real shame because some admittedly powerful vocal performances in that style stand out and add an important dimension to the game. It made me feel like I was missing out on some of what it had to offer. You see, music has a certain power of teaching, it seems, in this game, because whenever someone sings to a crowd, they learn all kinds of things about themselves, like that it's okay to not be a dick to everyone, or that dressing in cat costumes is something they're actually pretty into. Well, let's hope this doesn't awaken anything strange in me. Music plays a huge part in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, because whenever the team isn't busy booting shadow demons back to another dimension, they continue their quest to become singing and dancing sensations. Thankfully, they got a guy teaching them.
Shoulder, chin, shoulder, shoulder, shoulder.
Half the soundtrack is full of stuff I can get into, though. The grooving, fuzzy synth tracks for the dungeons and boss battles are at the top of my favorites list, and the stuff that plays over the cityscape is nice and catchy too. I found myself humming along to a lot of the music, and if that's not a sign that it's good, then I don't know what is. And is it just me, or do the little pastel NPCs actually step along to the rhythm of the music? That's actually pretty cool. What impresses me the most is how much variety in style and in instrumentation there is going on. There's a little bit of everything. The game's music was composed by Yoshiaki Fujisawa, who does a ton of work for a singing television project called Love Live, which explains why a good chunk of the game's tracks feel heavily influenced by their anime counterparts. While I may not particularly enjoy them, I know that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. I did some asking around online, and the general consensus is that fans of that style of music are really digging the soundtrack. So if it's your thing, it looks like you're in for a real treat. The music gets 17 points out of 20. The characters come in at second place. It took a while for me to warm up to them, but they slowly dug their way into my heart, and by the end of the game, that bittersweet feeling that endings bring had me sitting all sad on the couch. I'll admit that they aren't perfect. They're all friendly and good-natured, but I can't shake the feeling that I've seen them all before. They all seem kind of archetypal of their respective character types, and their character arcs didn't offer any big surprises or twists, so while I ended up really liking them all, I'm not sure if I absolutely loved any of them. Except for maybe Kiria in a cat costume, because that's just adorable. But they're all so earnest that it's almost impossible to outright dislike any of them. Except for Barry, whose borderline criminal obsession with the little girl on the team had me watching my door so I could make a break for it when the feds kicked it down. The leading character, Itsuki, ended up being a pretty cool character to think about. He doesn't have any dreams like the rest of the cast do, so he dedicates himself completely to helping the others achieve their own, being there to support the others in whatever way he could. It's nice to have such a good dude to follow through the game. All the side events where you can spend quality time with each character is a lot more engaging than the overarching plot of the game for me. It's weird because if you had asked me if I'd be interested in watching a bunch of teenagers working towards being pop star sensations before I started the game, I would have thought you were kidding. But I ended up cheering for them, and that means I liked them. A smattering of Fire Emblem characters make an appearance as well, acting as the performa facilitators in battles and just generally helpful friends outside of them. It is kind of fun to see them pop up in a game like this, but so few out of the huge cast of awesome Fire Emblem characters show up that it kind of leaves me wondering what the point of it all was. They didn't get any development for themselves, so if you aren't familiar with them from their own games already, they'll seem a little weirdly unimportant or out of place or something. The crossover idea has a ton of potential, but it's depressingly underused in the game. I'm really happy that they're there at all. I just wish their personality would have played a bigger part of their character. Overall, the characters get 17 points. For sure, the most enjoyable part of the game for me is how it plays. A lot of inspiration comes from the Fire Emblem mechanics, like the leveling system, the class change system, and more loosely the weapons triangle system, but there are a ton of added mechanics too. The small twist they threw into Shin Megami Tensei's turn press battle system from previous Shin Megami Tensei games are a huge addition in my opinion. The way your team's attacks stack on top of each other after hitting the enemy's weak spot is so satisfying. Being able to use the whole party effectively in a turn-based RPG without the usual attending headache of swapping members in and out is just really nice. I do wish you could speed the action up a bit though. After 50 hours, the sessions can start to feel a little long if you get everyone in on them. At least you can skip the special partner attacks, which, may I add, are pretty awesome as well. But yeah, between the battle load screen, any party swapping you might want to do, the sessions, specials, and everything else, even just the normal battles can take a good long while to wrap up. A problem I've run into with some more recent games is their insistence on having so many mechanics and so much micromanagement that the prospect of doing everything a game has to offer keeps me up at night, weeping and peeing nervously every few minutes with my head in my hands, feeling my life slip away 1 second at a time. Imagine my relief then when Tokyo Mirage Sessions presented before me a slew of mechanics that didn't require me to spend the better part of my adult life in menu subscreens. The gamepad had a clever use as a mobile device and mapping system for Itsuki too. Just another example of the game's efficient and clean gameplay. Great stuff. What impressed upon me the most about the gameplay is that it's definitely where the potential of the crossover between Fire Emblem and the Shin Megami Tensei series is most fully realized. It's challenging, intuitive, and fun. Overall, the gameplay gets 18 points. And so we come to the conclusion. Our final score of 82 is more than 3 points higher than the average score that it has online, so I have to say that the game is definitely a little underrated. Tokyo Mirage Sessions doesn't do any one thing perfectly, but it does just about everything well enough to make it a pretty enjoyable title. It isn't totally absolved from the blame of missing the mark on the expectations placed on it, but I don't think it's fair to say it fails because it strayed too far from its parent series. There's so much to like about it, so my advice would be to go into the game with the mindset that it's going to be its own thing, and not necessarily what you wanted it to be. It really is shamelessly aimed right at the anime audience, so if you know you're not into that scene, maybe I'd skip this one. But if it does look like something you could be into, I think you're in for a good time. Hey, thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought about the different parts of the game, or the game overall. We'd like to know. And as always, feel free to leave suggestions of games you think we should review in the future. See you next time.